welcome to the Joint Education Committee meeting. Thank you guys for being here. We just have really one announcement is that we will meet again on May 11th at 4 p.m. Location TBD, because who knows where we'll be by then. So we'll get back to that. But if you'll plan on May 11th at 4 p.m. And unless anybody else has any other announcements, we will move to our first agenda item, which is the ESSER funding update. So we're going to turn that over to Dexter Murphy, and he is there. I knew I had seen him. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for being here. Come on up.
All right, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
All right, so I'm here to provide you guys with a brief update on the ESSER implementation and monitoring plans. I know that the board members, you guys have heard a lot of this, but for the county commission side of it, we're just going to go through from A to Z basically on the implementation process and all those things as well. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and can you just tell everybody what your role is?
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is Dr. Dexter Murphy. I think it's up there, but that's okay, and I'm the ESSER program director. So my particular job is to monitor the implementation process of ESSER regarding all the priorities that we'll go through. But we also have Cheryl Martin here with federal programs, and she kind of handles the funding side of it, making sure that we're staying in line and dotting our I's and those things as well. So she's here as well with that. So any other questions for me?
Well, and Mr. Murphy was, is it Dr. Murphy or Mr. Murphy?
It's fine, either one.
It is Dr. though? Well, okay, because I thought so, but I wasn't 100% sure. I want to make sure I get it right. Dr. Murphy was, correct me if I'm wrong, you were with the district in the past, and now you've come back?
Yes. I think I know most of you guys, but yes, our brief history, 12 years in education in Knox County. Served as a 5th grade teacher for 4 years, was selected with the Leadership Academy, did a year there with Vine Middle School, and then went as assistant principal, 1 year at Sarah Moore Green, assistant principal, 2 years at Green Magnet as head principal, 1 year at Emerald Academy as the dean over there, came back to Knox County, 3 years at Maynard Elementary School, was recruited to be a consultant with National Institute for Excellence in Teaching this past summer, and now I'm back here as ESSER. So I've been around the back, so I'm glad to be back, so yes.
Welcome back. Thank you.
And with my NIT work for those brief 4 months, I was working with other districts across the state, and a few of those districts were kind of handling the ESSER aspects of those as well, so I had some background there, so it kind of comes hand in hand. So any other questions for me? All right, this is awkward, so I'll try to, can you guys hear me okay? All right, so we'll click through the next one. Okay, so what I put here for you guys is the Elementary and Secondary Education Emergency Relief Fund. And ESSER marks like it says here, the largest single infusion of federal dollars into Tennessee's K-12 education system, more than 7 times the amount received from Race to the Top. So that shows you the level of responsibility we have with these ESSER funds. With my particular role, highlighted in yellow, that's ESSER 3.0, which is the 1.14 million, which is what we'll do with, which is what I provide the updates with. As you see there, we had ESSER 1.0 back in March, which was 12.9. We had ESSER 2.0, which was 50.8 mil. And then today we'll talk about what are we doing with our strategies with regards to ESSER 3.0 there as well. Okay, just pulling us back to our vision. All right, so just pulling us back to our vision, this was the vision that was casted based on stakeholder input with regards to, what are we looking for with ESSER. And Knox County will strategically use ESSER funds to make sure that all students across all schools and all student groups will have access to continuing support and tools needed to thrive in grade level instruction and to enable them for success post-graduation. So this is twofold, making sure that these dollars are allocated for real-time support within grade level, and also how we're preparing our kids for post-graduation as well. So, and also I love the terms, all students, all schools, and all student groups. It talks about equity as well as equality as well. So any questions on our vision? Okay. So the next slide here talks about, I love this because it talks about, what are we doing with the next 12 to 24 months, understanding that these dollars have to be allocated by September 30th, 2024. So that's, how are we accelerating the learning and closing those learning gaps with our kids and meeting the social emotional needs impacted as well. But also thinking, how are we sustaining the work as well? So it's not just about spending the money and allocating the dollars, but how are we doing that in a sustainable manner as well? So, and I'll show you guys the priorities that we have outlined for that. Okay, here we have the total ESSER allocation. As you can see there, we have our priorities. Priority 1 is foundational academic skills. We have 30 mil allocated for that. Priority 2, effective educators, 19.7. And priority 3, post-high school readiness, which is 18 mil. Priority 4, overcoming obstacles to learning, which is 31 mil. And priority other allocations are 15.3 million. And it should be noted that Knox County used a stakeholder engagement process over 2021 to define investment priorities for ESSER 3.0 funding with those community meetings and stakeholder meetings, and to determine what our priorities would need to be to make sure that we're supporting our students and staff and families. Next slide, please. And I want to put this one in here as well. It's kind of a gauge that shows you the percentage of the dollars that are allocated there as well. As you can tell that, again, that the majority of our allocation is in the P1, priority 1, which is foundational academic skills, and also within P4, overcoming obstacles to learning, which I'll get into here later on, but it really talks about, P4 talks about what interventions are we putting in place, what are we doing regarding meeting the needs of our students and staff and families socially and emotionally, and also what are we doing regarding interventions to make sure that our kids are getting caught up due to the learning loss as well. Next slide. Okay, so once again, the stakeholder feedback process, a number of implementation considerations were highlighted during the feedback process. I'm going to click through those. The needs focused on A, making sure we had frequent progress reports with data on impact and needed changes. B, ensuring that we had equity across resources and programs. And C, ongoing stakeholder and community engagement, which is what this process is as well. So we also communicate out to the Minority Community Council in Knoxville, the Minority Advisory Council. Tomorrow we're presenting out to the Teacher Advisory Council. We also present out monthly to the Principal Advisory Council and to all the stakeholders. So we just want to make sure that we're sharing these on a monthly basis as you know, the Alphabet Roadshow, we call it. So I call it just making sure that we're making sure that everybody's involved and understand the process and understand the updates as well. As we click here. There we go. Okay, so these are our 4 priorities based on the stakeholder feedback. Once again, we have priority 1, foundational academic skills. Within that, we have priority 1 and priority 2 in our actual ESSER plan. That's public knowledge as well. You can find that on our website. Within priority 1, we have strengthening early foundational skills and also strengthening our math skills in 6th grade through Algebra 1 to make sure we have that firm math foundation before our students move on to high school for career readiness. And also priority 2 is effective educators. Within that, we have priority 5 within our ESSER plan to create a strategic approach to building teacher and school leaders. That talks about building their capacity as far as being better instructional leaders. And also creating a plan for recruitment and retention of high quality educators also. P3, we call it, is post-high school readiness. We report out on this one in February. And within that plan, we want to make sure we focus on developing structures and creating systems to ensure that we have equitable opportunities for students to have access to college and career exposure, and also making sure that we strengthen the supports for students to make sure that they graduate on time as well with the post-secondary success. And we'll spell it out here a little further on the next few slides. And the last one, overcoming obstacles to learning. That report you will hear more about in the April board meeting as well, but specifically it talks about priority 4, which talks about identifying evidence-based interventions and also making sure that we're creating safe and healthy learning environments through our facilities and technology structures. All right, so this is our board reporting schedule. Our board reporting schedule that, like I said, in February we reported out on priority 3, which was post-high school readiness. And our priority owner for priority 3 is Keith Wilson. And then this month, we just finished reporting out on foundational academic skills with Shannon Jackson as a priority owner. And then next month, we have overcoming obstacles up. And then in May, we have effective educators. And so the whole idea is to make sure every 4 months that you would hear updates from each of the priorities. So you would hear about the whole plan and the whole implementation plan 3 times per year, basically. So it's just a cycle that we go through. I like this plan because it gives us time to really dig into each of the priorities and really focus on it and hone in on it each month with that. So I love that. And also we get a chance to meet with each of the owners every week, but really go deeper with the work with whichever priority is focused on for that month. You can click to the next ones. Okay. And I think I just explained it to you. We have the monthly reports on implementation progress, and also myself and the priority owner, we also share out. And also we have created a quantitative stoplight system that gives us the updates. And so for every priority, we have an implementation plan. Within those plans, you have anywhere from 127 action steps to, I think one has 140 now. So there's a lot of work underneath behind the scenes that we really meet with and like rate every week on that. And that gives us a scope of work to make sure that we're moving the needle. If we have something that has a kink or a minor delay, we want to make sure we push in it and just talk about it and have a dialogue on how we can move that forward with that particular action step. So that's just giving you the understanding of the board responsibility schedule. Next. Okay, so when we create our implementation approach, we want to make sure that we had a cross-office coordination of all the priority areas. So within each of the priorities, we have people that are designated to each of the strategies or action steps, if you will, but we also have people that are working in different departments, if you will, to make sure that we're all working together and collaborating with that. And also we have clear owners for each priority and strategy, and that way we have clear lines of responsibility and accountability. And we also want to make sure that we have a thorough but flexible implementation plan, understanding that sometimes the needs may change, and sometimes we may have to come back to the table and say, okay, this isn't working or going as moving as in the right direction we thought it would, so how can we be nimble and kind of monitor and adjust along the way? And also we have internal monitoring routines, and I'll share that with you in a second, and we have regular reports to the board and community, as I explained, and just to share our successes and tell our story with our implementation process with ESSER 3.0. Okay, so what we have here is our priority schedule. Let me get caught up on my end here. There we go. All right, so what we have here is our ESSER priority reporting schedule. And weekly we have what we call strategy calibration meetings. And these meetings are with each of the priority owners. So for example, if you are the owner of priority 1, you have a weekly meeting with your entire strategy team, a team of maybe anywhere from 7 to 12 people. And I attend those meetings. Some of them are virtual, just about nature, and some of them are in person. But they're weekly meetings, and so we're meeting weekly on every single priority, every single strategy, every single action step within ESSER 3.0, right? All right, but then we also have what we call priority calibration meetings. That's where I facilitate those meetings with the priority owner. So it's myself, Dr. Roswick, Cheryl Martin, with Federal Dollars, and also all the priority owners. And so we meet and go a little deeper with the work and talk about any needs. We share any successes, share updates, and any barriers to any of the plans, and we kind of have a little think tank there with that. So that's bi-weekly as well. And in the third box there, you see priority stock take meeting. For every priority that is being focused on for the month, for example, this month was priority 1. So we met with the Knox County executive team with that particular priority, as well as the people I just explained to. Share it with you guys. And the focus on that is to make sure that we share out the report and to get more input from our executive team in Knox County Schools as well. And then lastly, with that priority, we bring it to the Knox County Board, to you guys as well, to get more input on the process and share out the updates and anything that may be a barrier to the work. And so that's our weekly, monthly schedule, if you will. I particularly like this process because every priority is meeting weekly, every priority is meeting bi-weekly at a more granular level. And then also every priority that's being focused on monthly is meeting with the exec team, myself, and then also we're sharing out with the board and the community with that as well. Any questions on this process? Okay, you can go ahead and click all that. I know it's a lot going through there, but thank you. All right, so this is our implementation plan flowchart. If you will. So this is just a visual just to show you what I'm talking about. So we have the overarching ESSER 3.0 implementation plan, but we have our 4 priorities, right? P1, foundational academic skills, P2, effective educators, P3, post-high school readiness, and P4, which is overcoming obstacles to learning. And then underneath those, we have strategies. For example, in P1, we have 6 strategies. In P2, we have 7 strategies. So there's a myriad of strategies underneath there. And then within those strategies, to make sure that we're moving the needle on the day-to-day work, we have action steps at a granular level there. Like I said earlier, with P1, there's 127 action steps that we're monitoring every day. So that's what I look at every day when I wake up. Before I go to bed, wake up, this is what I live and sleep to, basically, so this plan. But I love it because each of those levels, we have a priority owner, but we also have strategy owners and we have action owners as well. So there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are working on this. It's not just a one-man show or two people handling this. It's making sure that we have a whole team to make sure we get the work done and we're moving the needle in the right direction so we can have the student success that we desire for them to have that success in grade level and post-graduation. So this is just a clear visual of the entire implementation process. And the next slide talks about how we're going to measure our success. And what we do is we wanted to make sure that each of our priorities would be tied to our strategic plan goals, or not KCS current strategic plan goals. And so we have attached that. So each priority is attached to the plan. But also each priority has what we call interim indicators of success, meaning that we have an implementation goal for each priority and an outcome goal for each priority. So P1 has an implementation goal, an outcome goal, P2, 3, 4, and so forth. And also we have strategy goals and across the board as well. And so this is the way that I look at it and make sure that we're moving the needle in the right direction. All the outcome goals are student driven. So they're driven by student data, which is the why behind all of this. So we make sure that we have the implementation goal, how are we doing with the implementation of each of the strategies, and then what is the student outcome that we desire from that. Okay, so we're gonna get into P1 now because we've shared out P1 and we've shared out priority 1 and we've shared out priority 3, so forth, and coming up next was gonna be P4, overcoming obstacles in April. So with priority 1, foundational academic skills, the rationale behind that was, using our 3rd grade ELA data, trend data, and our algebra data as well as the indicators to show the rationale for us to make sure that we're creating strategies that are making sure that our students are reading at grade level by 3rd grade, and also to make sure that they are also experiencing success mastery in 9th grade, because 9th grade algebra is a clear indicator of students of students being on the trajectory to have more of those post-high school success graduation rates, and also making sure they're successful post-graduation. So that 9th grade is a clear indicator for that. So that's why these two are chosen for that. Okay, just one more slide here on the data. And this shows the clear gap, if you will, from over the past 4 years, since 2017. You can look there, and it talks about how the subgroups that are clear at the bottom there's a gap that's widened. And so that gap is still existing, so that's the rationale behind a lot of the strategies that you're getting ready to hear about in priority 1, foundational academic skills. Okay, I know this looks like a lot, but let me break it down to you. So this one, like I said, has 6 strategies within it. So priority 1, foundational academic skills, the owner is Ms. Shannon Jackson. She's doing a great job with this because it's twofold, as you can tell. Twofold meaning we have K2 foundational skills, which is the priority lead is Ms. Janet Sexton, and also we have on the right side Algebra 1, which is Gary Petco leading that work. And so within strategy, foundational skills, we have strategy 1A, instructional expectations that I'll talk about, strategy 1B, PD opportunities, strategy 1C, tutoring, and then 2A, middle school tutors, 2B, instructional expectations, and then 2C, lastly, math talent pipeline. And so if we can move on to the next slide. And I did not know this was going to be this small, and I apologize. But you guys have hard copies, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, because I have a copy here. But I wanted to put it all on one page, on one slide for you guys, just to kind of make it brief for that. And I apologize for you guys out here. But if we walk through this, we'll see that it has updates for each of the strategies. So if we look at strategy 1A, instructional expectations, it says the overall goal is to identify and define instructional expectations for primary grades that will enable them to meet 3rd grade expectations. And the key updates, if you will, that we have to report is that we're currently piloting an instructional walkthrough tool at 2 of our school sites to maximize literacy support. And I want to make it clear that that walkthrough tool is non-evaluative at all, and it's not an evaluation tool at all. It's a tool to make sure that when the literacy support and the literacy team is supporting with the teachers, that it's a tool to see what the need is to make sure that we're supporting in the right manner for that. It's non-evaluative. The teacher, no one walks in with, like a clipboard or a checklist or things of that nature. So they literally walk in and observe the class, ask the students what their learning is, and then they debrief out in the hallway and then kind of talk about that through the walkthrough tool as well. So, and just to provide more support with that. So I just want to make sure that was clear. It's non-evaluative. Also, we have tailoring support. There are 2 pilot schools based on the walkthrough information. So the information that we gather from that tool is going to allow us to better inform our instruction and inform how we're going to support our principals and teachers with making sure that we're really moving the needle with the K through 2 literacy foundation to make sure that our students are reading at grade level by 3rd grade. Okay, so that's the whole why behind the walkthrough tool. Any questions on that? Just want to make sure we're clear with that. Okay, strategy 1B, PD opportunities. Build professional development opportunities for teachers, administrators, and educational assistants to meet the identified instructional expectations for primary grades. And the key updates we have to report is that 17 schools represented in the first cohort of Literacy Specialist Program at UT. And this Literacy Specialist Program is a credential program where teachers that have been selected will be literacy specialists to be able to further diagnose any students that need further literacy support at our schools. And so I think this is a great opportunity because A, it's creating teacher leaders, right? And it's growing that pipeline. And B, it's also having people at the school site that know the students, that know the families, and now they have that specialized quality of how to diagnose where the students need further support literacy-wise with that piece. So I think that's a great strategy there, great action step. And the other one says, the update says, job-embedded professional development on evidence-based literacy instruction with the Reading 360 program that's provided statewide by the state, and it has been introduced district-wide. Okay, strategy 1C, which is tutoring. Strategically deploy tutors based on students' readiness, reading progress, and the updates are that we've shared the tutoring vision with 4 pilot schools to gather input and ensure our shared goals across the district, and also provided elementary schools with additional tutoring hours for before and after school tutoring. I will say that with the tutoring strategy, as we reported a few weeks ago, this is where we really are thinking differently and thinking more with more innovatively regarding how we can recruit more tutors with that piece of it, because this one is a minor delay because we need roughly over 200 tutors, to be honest with you. So we're working with our HR department, We're also working with our marketing team as well to kind of put that word out there as well. So because there's a huge need for that and there's a huge urgency with that piece of it. So thinking about how we can find 200 tutors is a key.
Can I ask, I mean, are we starting right now recruiting the tutors? Or so right now there are not any in place as of yet?
Currently, yes. In here, these tutors are going to be for the next upcoming year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the ones that we're recruiting now would not start until next school year. Okay.
Correct. But the urgency is now just because it's 200, which is a huge number that we need. Yeah, because that 200 includes math tutors in the middle school as well as the elementary ELA tutors also.
So
Question? Yes.
So how are we targeting? Are we going after UT students? Like, who are we looking for? Just any and everybody?
Yes, any and everybody, all the above. And so we've been talking with our team. We've been dialoguing about this. We had a special meeting, I think 2 weeks ago, and we talked about that, and we met with community organizations as well. And former principals, because I was thinking that we got to think differently in each district, right? Because I know in my district, District 1, a lot of the after-school programs would be great tutors because those students, those employees may not be working during the school day, so they can possibly tutor there. So, and also in some of the other districts, the PTA, PTSOs, those organizations as well. So we're putting together a plan for that, and we're trying to expedite that process. But yeah, we're trying to think differently with that.
Also, I would just say some retired teachers. Are you targeting them?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay.
What is the number of tutors you think you're going to need?
The exact number, Roger, you got that one? I think it's 250 estimated. Yes.
And would they be kind of put like as hourly wage type, like hourly type time clock people, or part-time basis, or, I mean, what kind of scheduling, just as we're trying to talk out in the community about the need for this?
Yeah, it would be before school and after school.
Okay.
Yes. thank you for that, yeah.
Okay,
Because
so
that's
it's not during the school day, it's, would be going in before school or staying
before
after school
school,
and
after
helping?
school, yes. Mhm.
And so it would be like a time card, just hourly? Okay.
And it's also during the day as well,
Okay.
yes.
Dr. Murphy, is there any kind of marketing materials that have been put together around that position in terms of things that people can use to help get the word out and that kind of deal?
We are in the process.
We have a flyer already, and if you go to www.hospital.org/tutors,
Okay,
that is already live.
thank you.
Yeah, so, this is my public service announcement, we need tutors. So, this is the one that, makes me, keeps me up at night, so, this one. It's a big one, and it's a big allocation for it as well, so, and it's a big push because we've seen that the research says that the high dosage tutoring, it moved the needle, like no other, so, I mean, it's needed vastly. Retired teachers, yes, that would be amazing. Yes, sir.
Dr. Murphy, have you looked at any of the high school students that could possibly tutor the elementary students?
Can you repeat that? Couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Any of our high school students that could tutor the elementary students?
No, we haven't considered that, but we'll make a note of that and bring it back to the team.
Yeah.
That's
They're all
great.
looking for, yeah, it's a great
great
idea.
thinking,
They're
yeah, I
looking
like
for
that.
after-school jobs, so that's
Yeah.
great, yeah.
That's great thinking.
So, and just a clarification also, anybody that is employed basically full-time as a tutor, it is a temporary position at this point, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I
Exactly.
think that's important for these guys to understand that this is not this is temporary for the moment.
Yes,
since
temporary
it's temporary funding.
until September 30th, 2024, but who's counting, right? But no, yeah, so it is temporary. It is temporary for that, but that is a push that we're really, really soliciting. This is one of the heavy hitters that we're really trying to get some traction on here. Moving on to 6 through 8 Algebra 1 math skills, updates here. Once again, math tutors, so I won't belabor that, but we just talked about that. The same thing, hiring the middle school math tutors, which is a 96, and that 96 is inside that 250 number as well, so that's not an additional 96 on top of that 200. Now, also, strategy 2B, instructional expectations, identify and define instructional expectations for middle school math that will support Algebra 1 readiness. And the updates are that we've launched Illustrative Math, a top-rated curriculum, and also we provided broad support for all math teachers through Train the Trainer model, and also PLC support, professional learning community support at our schools, and also we've identified and then we're piloting the walkthrough tool as in our math classrooms as well with that. So those are the updates we are providing currently. And then strategy 2C, the math talent pipeline, attract, recruit, and retain highly effective middle grades math and Algebra 1 teachers. And so we're partnering with, like I said earlier, the Human Resource Department, Marketing and Communication Department to develop a plan and process for increasing the middle grades math teacher talent pipeline because that is strongly needed. There's currently math positions that are vacant right now. So our mindset with this strategy is how can we increase a pipeline that we will have teachers, math teachers ready to roll whenever someone retired and so forth with that. Any questions on that one? Okay, next slide. Okay, I mentioned earlier that we have a status evaluation system. So this is criteria, if you will, that we have developed to make sure that we're monitoring each specific action step, each specific strategy. So we have, if you look at it, we have the criteria to your right, and to your left, if you're at a level 4, you may hear me say this strategy is at level 4, level 3, and so forth. Level 4 means there's 80% of the current action steps are on track, and it's documented with relevant timelines, milestones, and deadlines, has present and available the necessary ownership, time, resources, and so forth. Strategy 3, 60% are on track. Strategy 2, 40%. Strategy 1, 20%. So this is a rating scale that we use weekly. I've created Gantt charts. I've created all those things that we pull up at our meetings. And in those Gantt charts, it's color-coded. If you hit a 4, it turns green, and we talk about it. If there's a 3, we push in and have some really strong dialogue about that. Level 2, we have a few that are hung up there. Just for some procurement issues, things of that nature, but we're thinking about those things and how we can make sure that they're moving up the status report on that piece of it. So I love this because it helps us to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the prize with every specific action step, strategy, and all that. So I think this is a great system we've created with that. Any questions on this? Okay, next slide, please. And this is our overall progress report for priority 1. It is at level 3, and I know you're wondering why it's at level 3, but it is because of tutoring. So our tutoring is behind schedule. There's a minor delay with that, so we thought we'd be farther along with that than we are right now with that, but we are moving in the right direction. We've met with our marketing team and HR, and so we have a plan in place now, and we are meeting with community leaders and community organizations as well to make sure that we're thinking strategically with that piece of it. We met with the Minority Community Council a couple of weeks ago, and they had some good, great strategies for us as well on how they can help us, and we're meeting with different organizations to see how they can help also. Yes, sir.
Dr. Murphy, how long has the application been open for that, and what kind of interest are you seeing? I mean, I know you're not at the 250, but kind of, how's it going? So,
Ms. Christine Pope is over our tutoring. I don't know how long the application's been open. HR.
Mhm. Okay.
I mean, I guess realistically though, I mean, if these people really aren't starting till August,
Yeah, this
I would think that, I mean, like if I was looking for a job right now, I would not be applying for this. I mean, I almost see if they're not starting till August, you're probably not gonna see more interest
More
until the
traction
summer.
until August.
Or whenever you train them or something. So, I mean,
Right.
I almost am, unless you're sort of a maybe stay-at-home parent that sees us working or a retired teacher, I think for a lot of people, I can't see them seeing the urgency on applying for this right now.
Until the time comes, you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's a fair point. And unless you are, like you're saying, those retired teachers and
Right.
things of that nature, yes.
Dr. Murphy, I have a
Yes.
question. Are we also, because I just pulled up the website real quick and I see we're looking for full-time and part-time. Are we selling this to current teachers who may be looking to supplement a little additional money and they can stay after school and tutor that way? Are we, have they been offered this and this has been promoted to them and that
Yes,
sort of thing?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm. But I think it goes back to what you're saying is, I mean, once the time comes closer to the end, I would project that they'll be more on board then, but yes.
I mean, I think it's a good time, a PR campaign and getting the word out that we're needing it, but I would be surprised if people are really applying for it now.
And I think, and I totally agree with you guys, I think the mindset is to be more proactive. So that's why we're making that push right now and trying to be proactive and create that positive urgency, if you will.
And also, I think we asked this question in our meeting when you went over this, but I can't remember the answer. University students, you've also tapped into them. I
Yes.
thought
Mhm.
so. I
Yep.
thought I remembered that.
Yes, ma'am. So we're trying all avenues, so all avenues. And so this is just a graphic that I created, slide to show you our overall status. But like I just said, it's level 3 because of the tutoring. Long story short, but you know the positives are that 83% of our strategies are on track. Our action steps are completed. We had 32%. Action steps on track, 65%. We have those minor delays, and those are those tutoring action steps with that. And then action steps that aren't started, we're at 41%, and they're not started because of timeline. So that would go down because a lot of those things are slated to start this summer, like PD, professional opportunities, that's going to start this summer and things like that. So not a negative because they've not started, just that they haven't started yet because of timeline. Okay, we'll move on to P3. All right, so priority 3 is our post-high school readiness that we shared out with you guys back in February with Keith Wilson. But he has a few more updates in here that he wanted me to share with you guys, so we'll go through these as well. Okay, so this is just a clear graphic on how the priority 3 is outlined. We have strategy 3A, academic high school model. 3B is site-based experiences. 3C is middle school career exploration. 3D, counseling and advisement. And 3E is high school credit recovery. And we also have 69, I believe, action steps within this priority. Next slide, please. All right, and so we'll just click through those. And so I'll walk you through these and these updates as well. And on strategy 3A, the academic high school model, the whole idea is to develop and implement a career academy model for KCS high schools. understanding that, you know, once we have those small learning communities or academic models like that, that the students are able to have a quicker touch point, if you will, because in an SLC you may have like 200 kids where they have a counselor for those 200 kids as opposed to having a counselor for the entire 9th grade, if you will, or the entire school. So the academic model, academic high school model, what we've done there is with the forward work, we've created the master planning session that's completed, and also Keith and his team just completed an Academy of Nashville visit, I think 2 weeks ago in March, to look at those models, and also the final master plan and community designation is scheduled for May of this year with that. So with the academic high school model, those things are moving in the right direction, and that's a lot of the forward work that you've heard about as well. So, and they did a school site visit in Nashville, and then the master planning and designation is going to be shared out in May. 3B is site-based experiences, expand work-based learning opportunities through the development of site-based experiences and strategic partnership with industry and our community partners. And the key updates that he's added here is that the application process is initiated, and also this is new that there's been 5 submitted high school plans with that as well. And the assigned KCS facility staff to initiate procurement and contract process. So those things are underway. There's 5 high schools that have already submitted their plans, and so we're just waiting on a few more of those high schools to finish that. Yes, sir.
Dr. Murphy, that's 5 out of the 7 that have signed up for the original pilot, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as an additional, I know that this isn't about that work necessarily, but when would other schools be able to get in on that after the initial pilot? Do you know the answer to that question? In terms of the Ford NGL work, I know we have 7 initially, but.
I do have it in my implementation plan. I don't have it with me. You guys know.
John, yeah, do you know
the
when?
next phase of school.
When other schools could get into that process?
So to get to all 16, so the next phase will probably be a launch that we do in the spring of next year to get this first group time to get on the ground in the fall.
Yeah.
And so our goal would be that we could do that over the next 3 to 5 years, but we think we'll try to do the same thing again. We'll kind of let them volunteer and see where there is, but of course, the 5 years to get to that. Probably won't have another group as big as 7. The initial group is a little bigger because a lot of people wanted input into the master plan. So we're thinking maybe 3 schools, 3 to 5 a year, till we get to the 16.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I brought the schools. I thought I had it here. The 5 schools we have currently turned it in is L&N, Central, Gibbs, Hardin Valley, and Carter. So those are the 5 that are turning their plans so far as well with that. So. All right, strategy 3C, middle school career exploration, develop consistent tools, resources, and approaches to middle school grades for career awareness and exploration. Updates here is that initiating the procurement for college and career resources, and also 6 elementary schools and 6 middle schools have been identified developing steering committees that are comprised of their principals, the administration, the counselors, and teachers. And I have those schools here as well. Just want to share that with you guys. The middle schools are Holston Middle, Farragut Middle, Carnes Middle, South Doyle Middle, West Valley Middle, Whittle Springs. The elementary schools are Christianberry, Chilhowie, Dogwood, Carnes, Rocky Hill, and Farragut. So those are the schools that we have on board with that piece of it. And the idea with this strategy is to make sure that we're exposing our students to more career exploration at the middle school level. And the mindset is that we can expose them early, then hopefully they'll be more apt to make those decisions at a quicker pace with that. It's all about exposure at the middle school level. Question? Okay, sorry.
And I'm assuming it's kind of the same model as Ford and GL, that we'll have an initial group and then
Yep.
we hope to expand that
And we'll
every
spin it
year.
out. Exactly, yes. So these are the first 6 that are signed up for the pilot, yes. First phase, excuse me. Strategy 3D, counseling and advisement, develop and implement a system for the creation of a tracking system of personalized high school post-secondary plans that align students' strengths and interests to their academic, CTE, and post-secondary pathway options. Updates here is we have hired lead middle school and high school college and career counselors, and also we're posting new college and career mentor positions before March 30th, and we're hiring 16 middle school and 16 high school college and career mentors. And these positions are strategically designed to make sure that they're pushing in with our students to make sure that they're creating plans and they're monitoring their plans as far as like college and career readiness with that. So I think it's a beautiful thing that they're going to walk alongside these students at their early middle school ages to make sure that they're advising them and counseling them in the right direction with that. And then lastly, strategy 3E, high school credit recovery. With that, we have updates that we've reinstated the night alternative program. And lastly, we had talked about, we had just finished the January credit recovery blitz. And I do have those numbers here to report out that we have 442 credits recovered during the January blitz, that's great news right there. So 442 credits have been recovered through that January blitz. Questions? Okay, next slide. And once again, this is our monitoring system. And then we'll go to the next slide for the final update. P3 is at level 4. They've done a lot of great work. Also, they're at level 4 because of the collaboration with Ford has really kind of catapulted and moved them in a faster trajectory as well. So all things are moving in the right direction with this one. If there's anything that we're foreseeing that could be any kind of hangups, it just would be staffing challenges like we all know, right? And also just kind of making sure that we're planning ahead for procurement, which we are doing that as well. What we've done there as well is we've assigned specific people with each of the priorities to make sure that they're keeping their eye on the procurement pieces of things to make sure that we're moving in the right direction on that one. And next slide. Okay, and so the other priorities, which is overcoming obstacles to learning, we will share out with those updates are forthcoming in the next couple of weeks at our board work session. And then we have effective educators coming up in the May board work session as well. So that's all we have to report regarding our ESSER updates with that information. Next slide, please. And time for questions. Next steps.
I do have one question. So when we applied, and I know you weren't here when we did the application, but when we applied for the 114 million, it pretty much was allocated into one of these different strategies of using it, because I know we recently had County Commissioner Jay come and talk to us about reallocating money to playgrounds, which is just not an easy thing to do, I'm understanding, because we've already pretty much set them towards academic goals and things like that. So if you could sort of address some of the problems on what seemed like a very simple suggestion, but I don't think is quite as simple as it seemed at the time of the presentation.
With regards to?
Well, just moving money around. I mean, we've done this extensive ESSER application to the federal government, and the suggestion was that we reallocate that money towards playgrounds, which I value playgrounds, and I hate the fact that we don't fund them, but.
And that would require yeah, and we'll bring up Cheryl Martin, but that will require, I can tell you, it's going to require an addendum. That will require an addendum process, and you can, it's every 6 months, but I'll bring up Cheryl Martin. She handles all the funding and all that side of it, so.
And I guess it would probably take money away from something that we had already decided to do. If there's not extra money.
Yes, ma'am, it would.
Okay.
So, but bigger context, the funding was put in place to prepare for, prevent, or respond to COVID. So we have to stay within that framework when we're thinking about, when we're going back to the process of the needs assessments, which we will do again, this year, because we're required every 6 months to update all of our ESSER plans. So we'll go back to the whole needs assessment, look at our student data, where the students are performing, how we've netted out this year. Do we need to make any tweaks with anything, change anything, go back and do any revisions and things like that? Especially around, so we've talked a lot about tutoring today. So do we need to think about not only incorporating full-time positions, but part-time positions, and yes, your point, incorporating high school students and that tutoring and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is a very large sum of money, and to me it looks a lot like just a grant, just a different form of getting a grant. Being able to recover from their learning loss is probably the most important thing that's going to happen to our students over the next 3 to 4 years. Some of these programs will be very successful, some may fail. When the money runs out, what kind of foresight are we going to go with to be sure we eliminate the things that aren't working, and find a way to keep and maintain the things that are working.
No, and I totally agree with that, and thank you for that thought. I'm of the same mindset, being a parent, and as well. So I mean, understanding, like you're saying, that kids have suffered, and this is what this is about: is making sure that we're supporting them, and what are we doing to make sure it's sustainable after the money's away. So those are things that we are revisiting, that we're talking about. That's part of the process. Like Cheryl said, every 6 months we come back to the table, say what's working, what's not working, how, if this is working, how do we make it sustainable? How do we perhaps roll this into a general purpose? You know, so that's out of my lane, but I mean, that's what I would think, you know, would happen there as well. So, you know, with that process.
I've just been around government long enough to know that it's easy to start things, and no matter how bad they are, it's sometimes tough to stop them.
Well, I mean, I remember asking that same question when Dr. Reiswick went through it with me as a board member when I first saw this plan, and, you know, that was a specific question that I had. So I kind of see it as an opportunity to try some things that we could not try otherwise, and see, and just do just that. Figure out what's working and what's not, and if something is pushing the needle, is it pushing it enough to change something else so that we can fit it into the general purpose? And if it's working, then maybe, you know, we would have to identify something else or whatever, you know, figure out a way to pay for it. But I mean, that, I know, I remember specifically asking Dr. Reiswick that question. So, you know, I appreciated the ability to truly address, like, this is what we need, what we feel strongly about, is increasing literacy before COVID even. You know, COVID just compounded the problem we already had. So it's a good time to try some things and just see what works. And we, you know, I think we fully know that we will not be able to sustain all of this, but use it as a kind of testing ground. And we have a great partnership with Knox Ed Foundation, who's willing to partner with us if there are strategies that do work and help us figure out a way to sustain those.
And to me, a lot of it too is so much, I mean, I think the tutors and stuff is very specific and, you know, bringing manpower in, but a lot of it is about building our pipeline of teachers in a way that we have not been able to do. That
Exactly.
I think that if we can start that investment, some of that will pay off and not even necessarily have to be probably the money spent on it in the same way, because I think it will start doing some things like training some people to be math teachers, or getting people at a different level to be trainers within the schools themselves and stuff like that. So some of this stuff, it seems like some of the stuff is very much money that would go away, and if we wanted to keep it, we'd have to do it. But some of it seems like it's things that if we can get started, it doesn't necessarily need I mean, some of the things I think we'll benefit from, even like the Ford NGL program, just the investment on getting that started and the consultation and stuff, a lot of that, once we get going, doesn't need as much of the seed money, I think.
Right.
Is my
and I mean,
understanding.
you know, that's kind of, that was kind of a direction of thought to move that way anyway. So it happens to be a perfect time to do that, because schools can also get additional, that's in here somewhere, is that each school gets additional funding for CTE programs to buy startup equipment and that kind of thing, correct?
Correct.
So that's actual, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that is, you know, whatever physical plant kind of
Physical structure that's needed, all those things.
structures, yeah, they may need to build.
Right.
They may need, they can build something that they may need to build. They may need to purchase equipment. So that's kind of one-time kind of thing that will then, to Virginia's point, continue down the road, and hopefully will not add. I mean, that certainly wouldn't add, you know, other than maintenance costs or whatever. So.
And I look at it like it gives us this opportunity to be innovative, you know, and this is like once in a lifetime opportunity for our district to be really innovative and to try to think strategically in how we can try things and pilot the process. And if it works, how can we scale it up, like you're saying, and make it sustainable, right? But also I think about, you know, I've seen a lot of plans when I was consulting, and what I love about our plan is it doesn't have a lot of the staff that you're going to have to riff in 2 years, or that's what I love about it, because I wasn't here when the plan was created, but the plan seemed like it was really created with that mindset, and I appreciate that, because, you know, that's something you don't want to do. It is about long-term strategies that we're thinking about. So, yeah.
But, and Dr. Murphy, I think that slide that you have related to the next 12 to 24 months versus the next 3 to 5 years is key. And I'm going to give you credit again in front of our county commissioners. I mean, I think a big part of the answer to your question is having somebody like a Dr. Murphy who's hoping to oversee the implementation plan and the process improvement. I mean, you know, you've been before us several times now as a school board, and I mean, you're highly skilled, and I just want you to know that, and I know you do. But you give me a lot of confidence that the system is going to be able to manage this money well because of the system that you've laid out before us, and also know that we are looking long-term in terms of how can we take what we're going to be able to do over the next 12, 24 months and cast that forward and do the process improvement piece too. So.
I had the same questions that Susan had at one of the meetings and concerns, and I think too, one thing that I brought up was having these monthly reports on this, because I think to what you were saying, just having it in front of us each month can, over time, will show us, well, this is working, this isn't working. So over the time as we go on, we can either tweak that or, okay, this is what we need to get rid of, this is what we need to focus on. So I think just constantly talking about it and constantly having this in front of us and the data, and up-to-date data is helpful as well.
And I agree with that, and I look at it as like phases. This is phase 1 of the
Right,
reporting.
yeah, yeah.
And so I guarantee you, when we come back in phase 2, we'll have a lot more granular level, like, okay,
Yeah.
this isn't working, this is working, let's
Yeah.
what we're gonna do, yeah.
Yeah, and I do appreciate, because one of my things when we first got this money was making sure that we are putting it in the classroom and moving the needle forward, because we have seen so much learning loss, and you guys have done a tremendous job with that, so thank you for the work you've put into this.
Thank you, guys. It's a great team that we have, so thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murphy. Any other questions?
I have one last
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
We see the email, I guess, maybe Chris can answer the question from Knox Education Foundation about the whole literacy, program, which I didn't know. I mean, I was trying to figure out how this fits in with that. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I don't have my commission.
Yeah.
There was a literacy.
That new, the email from this week
Yeah.
with the summer, yeah, the
is that-
yeah.
Does this all relate to, because when Susan talked about, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I was just curious since we talking about literacy and.
Absolutely. No, that's our effort to start mobilizing around summer learning. So we
Okay.
sent that out to stakeholders and everyone to start the process and conversation. We're working with KCS, and we're going to be sending out some tools for parents and other organizations and stakeholders to really dive in with their kids this summer around literacy. But it's our goal to make sure that this community comes together around addressing learning loss and then accelerating learning. So ours is strictly an opportunity to rally support for everything that KCS is doing, and then to be that friend and partner, and going out to secure the necessary resources to make that happen.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. It's a lot of information to take in, so. All right, so now we're gonna move to, as you all know, the state is looking at changing the funding for education for BEP into the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement. And so we have a little bit more information. So Mr. McPherson, would you like to come and share what we know and what we don't know? And
Probably more we don't know than what we know. This is a good segue into some of the discussion we just ended with on Dr. Murphy's presentation. Because a significant amount of dollars, additional dollars from the state funding model would address some of those very needs that we were talking about, right? If ESSER would end, so obviously those dollars are not sustainable. Any funding model from the state would be in recurring dollars. That's why we'd have to be extremely strategic in how we want to utilize those dollars if there are significant amounts coming in. And one good thing I think about these ESSER strategies is the state has very specific accountability measures that will be required for whether some of these initiatives are working in the way that we hope that they will work. So I think that when it comes down to having to make those decisions as to what would be blended into general purpose funds, and we'll just have to be really honest, those types of initiatives may very well be competing against existing initiatives within our general fund. So so we get that, competing for the same funds. Any additional dollars from the state would certainly help. But I think the good thing is that those are decisions that can be driven by the data. And John or Dr. Burns, or Dr. Rice and Dr. Burns, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think that will really help us that as, you know, Ms. Henderson was saying, as we go along with these initiatives, there will be we're reporting out some accountability measures, and what's the data showing, So we shouldn't get into one of those things that, hey, we're wondering if something worked or not, or is working, that we'll have that ability to see if it's the needle actually moving in the direction we want. So, having said that, and to get into the TISA, or TISA, or pronounce it. TISA, that's another one, right? So it's that's Tennessee Investment Student Achievement. I can tell you that the state is, to their credit, they have sent out a lot of information, but once that information goes out, that leads to a lot more questions. And there's still a lot of questions that, as we all know, legislative approval, enrollment ratios, right? So you have, 4,000, I'm making this up, 4,000 first graders. The state then says, okay, we're going to allocate one teaching position for every 20 first graders. We'll give you, 200 teaching positions funded at this particular cost. It's not the average cost of what we fund a teacher, but it's a dollar amount assigned to the state, which is actually lower than what the average cost per teacher. So, and then as the grade levels go up, it's up to like maybe 25. For every 25 kids, you get a one, and then up to the secondary level, like 30, and so forth. So obviously there are some inherent flaws with that particular type of methodology we've talked about kind of ad nauseum, over the years. We've had this model for 30 years, kids, like we said many times, kids don't come along in neat packages of 20 and 25 and 30. Because the state allocates at a district level, but then their requirements are then at the classroom and school level. So if we had school at Neyland Stadium, the funding would probably work better. But obviously it's with 89 schools, that's not practical.
Ron, they've been using that phrase since before there was a Neyland Stadium.
I totally think you're right, Commissioner. But there's some basic, some built-in logical flaws, I guess, with this type of model. Now, what would TISA look like? It's described as a student-based model, and so it generates funding based on the cost of the student. And so this is actually probably the majority of states in the nation, probably 60% or more, have some type of student-based model of some sort. So this is not a new thing. And so how this student-based funding or this student-based model would work, there's this base level of funding, right, for every kid for every student in the state of Tennessee. So there's this standard amount, and then it's based on similar or probably the same general components that BEP are currently based on. It's like instructional positions, supports, operations, educational materials, and so forth. So there's this base level that's for every student. Then on top of that, it would be subsidized. The funding would be subsidized on a weighted model for students, what they term as students with unique needs. So this would be students that are economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, English language learners. There's also a component in there based on students in sparsely populated rural areas. And so so there's a lot of questions on how this can kind of fall out. There's also a component, an additional component called outcomes-based funding. Yes.
Before you move on to outcome-based, I wanted to ask a question about the student-based. Does the student-based have any kind of index to it for cost of living? Because we know to pay someone to work in Knox County, you have to pay them more than you pay somebody to work in Union County or another county.
A lot of this actually, I think, works there disadvantages. There is a fiscal capacity model that will be built into the formula, very similar to BEP. So there's two indices, is that the plural index, that currently the state uses. It's kind of like an average of to arrive at the fiscal capacity. We're hearing that maybe they're gonna continue fiscal capacity, they may eliminate one of those in favor of just one of those. But fiscal capacity essentially says, it's a measure of a municipality's ability to pay for education from its own local tax base. And so for Knox County, that really seems to hurt us at times. So we looked at this a couple of years ago, and you're looking at $60 to $70 million that's probably redirected away from Knox County into other districts. Because they look at other districts and say, well, they don't have the ability to fund its own way like Knox County. So keep in mind, it's not a district's willingness to pay, it's a district's ability to pay. But we've looked at this at a per pupil level from both the local and the state portion, and we don't do so bad from the local portion. We're probably at a per pupil level, we kind of drift between 10 and 12 in the state, So that's, it's not so bad. When you look at from the state amount per pupil, if there's 140 some odd districts, we're probably in the 130s. So we're way down with respect to the state. Unfortunately, there's going to be some sort of a fiscal capacity index in there, so that never helps us.
So Ron, let me make sure I understand. So basically, our per student base would be less than others. Is that correct? Because
No, let me, after
Because
the
we've seen
fiscal
an-
capacity, it may be, yes.
because we've seen a number that I understood to be the
Yes.
number.
That's right.
But it's-
Right, so it'll be similar, so it'll be these components that generates this amount of funding, but then it'll be adjusted by this fiscal capacity index, much like the BDP.
And that's kind of the opposite of what I'm talking about, the fiscal capacity of it. I'm talking about just the actual pay you have to pay teachers, custodians, cafeteria workers is higher in a metro area than it is in a rural area. So they don't adjust it that way up,
Correct,
but they'll bring it down with
Right.
capacity.
that's correct.
Because they don't feel like we tax at the level that we have the capacity to tax at, is the kind of, from me, going to trainings, that we have the ability to tax higher than we tax, and we don't do it, so they
Yeah,
penalize
so
us.
you can make it up on local.
They don't take in that you have different forms of county governments, municipalities.
No, I mean,
Maryville's got a special tax district. Oak Ridge does too.
they don't seem to care.
Yeah, that's true.
Really don't.
Now, and so this outcomes-based funding, that is, it basically is to incentivize student achievement. I think we all probably don't need any, motivation to do that. That's what we're all about anyway. But there's a focus on literacy and college and career readiness, but we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. So again, there's a lot of questions on, and you kind of get into this student achievement. Well, sometimes there's some systemic issues that can hinder student achievement, and would that be taken into account? So we really, there's just a lot of questions there. So I guess we cut to the chase. What does this mean for Knox County in like real dollars? Because I don't care how many ways you slice the pie, how many different ways you calculate it. The real question is going to be, does this generate more dollars for Knox County schools? The state has indicated that there will be more funding under this PISA model than BEP, and they've thrown out the amount of a $1 billion investment in recurring funds from the state. There's almost 1 million students in the state. There's 970 something, I think, is the last number, 1,000 or whatever they looked at. But if you just round it to 1 million, what that comes out to is about an average of $1,000 more per student investment than what we currently receive. So if you just did the math, Knox County has 58,000 kids. If you do the math, it looks terrific, right? $58 million. And we did receive a breakdown from the state. All districts received it. And also all districts have privy to what other districts presumably might receive under this too. And it came out to $54 million for Knox County in additional dollars. So on the surface, this will look to be like, wow, this would be a game changer, $54 million additional dollars. But the questions we have is, do these represent real dollars? Because we have received information over the years from the state, and you kind of want to temper your excitement because you'll hear something about, hey, this is great, and this is wonderful, like the BEP cautiously optimistic, right? But there's some big questions we have there. Is the 54 million, is there a local component built into that we would be required to meet or not? And we've reached out to the state, to get clarification in writing, actually, as to what that means. We haven't received it yet, so I'm hopeful we will. Commissioner?
You know, two quick things, Ron. I think I saw somewhere there was a 70-30 ratio or a 60-40 state local funding. And also, you're in the middle of trying to do your budget right now, construct your budget. Has the state indicated that they will give you a drop dead time that we're either going to move forward with this or it will be the following year?
We're going, right, well, so the assumption now, and it's based on what the state has told us, we're operating under the assumption that BEP is still in effect for the upcoming budget. And so this would not, if the legislature would approve this, it would not take into effect until the following year. So as of right now, it looks like BEP is still in effect at least for another year. And let me just also say that if we're fortunate enough to get $54 million, and I'm not saying that's what we're going to get, right? This is kind of hypothetical. We don't know what it'll be adjusted down for. But let's say it's let's just say it's a significant amount of dollars, and so that increases the floor, right? So that's wonderful news. And some of the information we've also seen is that in subsequent years beyond that possibly the annual increases may not be as favorable as what we're used to. That could be a huge problem for us, because then you're looking at sustainability type issues, right? Whether you can sustain what you programmed into your budget. So if you have a $600 million budget, or let's say right now currently it's $540 million, and so just inflationary costs alone, just to do a continuation budget absent of any additional initiatives, then there's a heavy lift just to keep that going. If, let's say now the budget is over $600 million, then obviously your inflationary costs associated with that budget are going to be more than they were before. And so if those annual increases are less, that could be a real problem. So that, again, there's just a lot of questions that we have, along with 139 other districts too. And so I would label it this way: we're cautiously optimistic based on the information we've received, especially with respect to the additional dollars we can get. One last thing I'll mention, that the required local match, when there's additional dollars that the state has presumably committed for education, you have to understand there's definitely going to be an increase in the local match. Now, what we're hearing from the state is that the state will hold districts harmless for several years until they can work their way up there. I'm not necessarily as concerned about that for Knox County, because we contribute so much more than the local match right now in what we're required to do. So, but I will say this, that for some other districts, this could be a real problem. I think that's what we hear from some of the smaller districts that are kind of having some reservations about this, because if their local match requirement goes up, they may be at the minimum right now anyway, and if their local match goes up, once that whole harmless provision goes away, they could find themselves in somewhat of a spot in trying to locate additional resources. I don't think that's going to be so much a problem for Knox County, because we're way over and above that minimum requirement anyway. So, but again, we're still having communication from the state. We're continuously trying to find answers. We'll keep the board and the commission informed when we get some more solid answers. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Do we, have we started getting information from the state about planning for next year's budget with BEP? Or are they so, I mean, I know it's been hard because nobody's known if we're changing models or not this year, but I didn't know how we were on trying to get this budget going.
I think it'll be just like previous years.
Okay, just
we'll
based on
probably hear
past
something in late April.
Okay.
Probably about the time that we're approving the budget, which is really an odd position to be in, because we have to actually estimate what BEP will look like and approve a budget typically before we ever, or get a budget at least solidified before we ever find out what that looks like. Our folks, our budget folks, do a really good job of being able to look at past trends. They actually even go in and look at the total dollars from the state that they committed to the BEP, and then they look at it based on what our typical proportional share has been over the years based on our enrollment, and they get pretty darn close. I mean, they do a really good job. Unfortunately, there's a lot of districts that administration to kind of pull that off. And so periodically, we will get, well, hey, how did y'all, figure that out? But we just have some folks with a lot of institutional knowledge, and we got some folks in our budget department that Joe Snyder particularly does just a terrific job in really getting very close. So it does put us in kind of a difficult situation in that it's like 40-something% of our budget, and you don't even have a number yet that you're having to program in there. So we get pretty close. It's typically not significantly different when we do find out that information than what we already have programmed. But I can tell you that, so we'll get an estimate, usually it's late April, late May, late June, it's still not official, and it's not official until July. That's typically after both the board and the county commission has approved the budget. So that's just the nature of the game, and I suspect it'll be the same way this year.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. Okay, so that's a lot of information to take in, so, all right, other business. If any topics that anyone has in, kind of on your radar that you'd like to cover for our May meeting. All right, think about it, and you can reach out to me or to Terry, or to Commissioner Smith, and just let us know if there's anything in particular that you would like to hear more about, because at that point we will have approved the budget. And so unfortunately, since we have so many unknowns right now, we can't really talk about it right now. So all right, anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.